So I just completed reading The Picture of Dorian Gray by Oscar Wilde, and this book is so interesting that I just kept turning pages and I completed it in just 4 days. And today I read most of the chapters, and I can say it is one of the finest pieces written by Oscar Wilde. It has all those gothic elements, the beauty of aestheticism, and everything. Well, this particular book was written during the Victorian era, like in 1890s, and during that time, the aesthetic moment, the aestheticism was flourishing, which promoted the idea of art for art's sake, that we should see art just for its beauty, not for any moral, political, or any religious purposes, not for learning or uh, teaching morality. We should enjoy it for its beauty alone, and that is the point of this particular novel, The Picture of Dorian Gray. Every description on each and every page, it's so beautifully written. All those vintage elements of the furniture, of the buildings, of the dresses, and even of the characters, their demeanor, everything is so alluring, so aesthetic, that you just want to read more and more. Now let's come to the story and the plot. It's a very simple story, but it is written in such a beautiful way that you just want to turn pages. It's all about art. It's all about an artist and a picture. An artist, that is Basil Hallward, and there's one character Henry, and the main protagonist, that is Dorian. His picture is being painted by the Basil, and this picture becomes the whole central point of Dorian's corruption and his fall into the sinful world. And what I can draw after reading it, while I was reading it, as I can say, there is again the concept of intertextuality. This work echoes the great story of Faust. I want to say the great story of Dr. Faustus by Christopher Marlowe, and Lord Henry. I feel he alludes to Mephistopheles, and here Dorian is like Dr. Faustus, wanting to know more, like a Renaissance man, wants to explore his body, wants to know more about the world, the sins, the corruption, beauty, truth, everything. And Lord Henry has this devilish demeanor, his corrupting influence, and the way he manipulates Dorian throughout the novel, and how Dorian unconsciously makes pact with the Lord Henry by getting influenced by him, makes the whole plot very interesting and alludes to the story of Dr. Faustus, what I can draw from it. So the plot goes like this. There are three characters, that is Basil, Dorian, and Henry. So Basil is an artist. He is drawing a portrait of this very young, beautiful man, that is Dorian, and he also has one friend, that is Lord Henry. Lord Henry is a very manipulative person. His character is very static. He doesn't change throughout the novel, and Basil is shown. Basil's character has this undertones of Oscar Wilde's character. Like Basil had some feelings, some infatuation for Dorian, as he always was of this view that I worship Dorian. I don't want more of my feelings to come into this portrait. I don't want to reveal more of myself than Dorian. So there are undertones of homosexuality in the character of Basil and the whole relationship between Dorian and Basil. So the story goes like this. Basil drew a portrait of Dorian, and Dorian was very naive first, and his character changes throughout the novel. He goes certain very devilish changes, and the only reason behind all those changes were the poisonous book, which is mentioned as a yellow book given to him by Lord Henry, as Lord Henry was a very hedonistic person. He enforced his hedonistic philosophy on that young boy, which corrupted his life. Although Basil throughout the novel wanted to act like his super ego, I would say. So the Freudian theory also implies here that our mind has three areas, like id, super ego, and ego. So here we can say Lord Henry was like that id. He wanted Dorian to explore all those unconscious desires that he had in him. But Basil, from the starting of the novel, was like, don't listen to Lord Henry and stuff like that. So here we can say he was similar to what super ego teaches us, and the ego is like the balance between the two. And Dorian was always stuck in what he should do, like he should listen to his id or he should listen to his super ego, but ultimately he was dominated by his id and got corrupted. And he made a very strange wish when he saw his portrait after listening to Lord Henry's manipulation. He wished, like, he wanted this portrait to grow old and have all the sins onto this portrait, and while he himself should remain pious, pure throughout his life, and very young and youthful. So the gothic element of the whole novel is like this, that whenever Dorian commits any sin, it was shown on the picture. The picture grew hideous with the passage of time, and the corruption of Dorian was not seen on his face. He was looking the same innocent young boy, but the picture was turning hideous and hideous. And the plot twist was this: in the climax, he murdered Basil because he thought that Basil is the one reason for his corruption, because he drew the portrait, and this portrait gave him the sense of jealousy that this portrait is going to stay forever young while he himself will become hideous and grow old and vain. So he murdered him, and done so many vicious things all together in the novel. But at the end of it, he wanted to change, and for to get changed, he thought, I should tear this portrait and everything will be over. So the gothic element here is that he struck the portrait with the knife, and the portrait somehow turned beautiful, same youthful again, and Dorian was dead, lying on the floor, and he was looking absolutely hideous, grotesque, and very devilish. and his servants identified him through his rings. That is the end of the novel. So the whole point of writing this novel was to show how Victorian people lived, how for them appearances mattered more than morality, more than virtues. They believed in looking elite. They believed in going to clubs and operas. All the culture, what lifestyle they lived, everything is presented here. How superficial they were. How appearances mattered to them more than anything else. They just want to look dandy, which is a word coined by Wilde. So there is this one thing which I noticed, how this theory of aestheticism was disrupted in the novel, like the motto, which was their motto, like art for art's sake. In this, like art for art's sake, they believe that art should be seen through the lens of beauty. We should not find morality and everything else in the art. We should just enjoy it for its beauty. But one thing which I find here is that while Dorian commits his first sin, which was rejecting Sybil Vane, and she commits suicide and everything. So when he saw his portrait, there was certain lines of certain devilish expression on his portrait, and here it is represented that his morality was shown onto his portrait, so which is not the point of the art for art's sake theory. So all his sins were transported onto the portrait, which is not the point of aesthetic theory. So here the theory gets disrupted. This is my whole point of view, but I just totally loved it, and I recommend it 10 by 10 from my side. Thank you.